I have thought about what to do with this story for a long time. I have started it in my head 100 different ways. In the dark, in the early morning before anyone else was awake, while hanging laundry on the line in a wind that smelled like autumn coming. I have put it down and picked it up again and put it down. But here I am, and here it is. The story of the thing Ruth said to me on my wedding morning, and the 6 years it took me to understand that she had been right about all of it. I need to tell you something before we go any further. More than 90% of the people watching this video right now have never subscribed to this channel. And I understand that. You found your way here somehow, maybe through a late-night search, maybe because something in the title pulled at you in a way you couldn't name. But if this story, before it is even finished, has already made you feel something, if it has already made you lean forward even a little, I hope you will subscribe and ring that notification bell. It is free, it takes 1 second, and it means that the next story, and there are so many more, will find you when it is ready. Now let me tell you about Ruth. Ruth was my husband's older sister. She was 29 when I was 22. She had been married for 7 years to a man named Aaron, who was quiet in the way that rooms are quiet after a loud sound has passed through them. I did not understand what I meant by that then. I do now. Ruth had dark eyes that moved slowly, the way the eyes of people move who have learned to watch carefully, because watching has kept them safe. She made the best bread I had ever tasted. She laughed easily, but never loudly. And on the morning of my wedding, while my mother was pinning my dress and my aunt was braiding my hair, and 3 of my cousins were arranging flowers on the long tables in the barn, Ruth found me alone. I had slipped out to the back porch. I needed a minute without the noise, without the hands on me, without the weight of the day pressing from every direction. I stood at the porch railing and looked at the field and tried to remember what ordinary air felt like. Ruth came through the screen door behind me. She did not say good morning. She did not say you look beautiful. She stood beside me and looked at the field the same way I was looking at it. And then she said, very quietly, without turning toward me, "Hannah, I need to tell you something about my brother, and I need you to really hear it." I looked at her. Her face was not frightened. It was not dramatic. It was the face of a woman who has made a careful decision and is carrying it out. That face should have told me everything. But I was 22, and the dress was already pinned, and the guests were already arriving. She said, "Daniel is a good man in the ways that matter in public. He is a good man at church and at market and in front of your father. I want you to know that I love him. He is my brother. But there is a version of him that you have not met yet, a version that lives inside the walls of a house, inside a marriage. And I am telling you this now, this morning, because once the vow is made, there will be no one left to tell you." I remember the feeling that moved through me when she said it. Not quite fear, something more like the moment before fear, when your body knows something is coming, but your mind is still catching up. I asked her what she meant. I asked her quietly, carefully, the way you ask a question when you are not sure you want the answer. She was quiet for a long moment. Somewhere in the barn, a woman laughed. A door swung open and the smell of coffee came through and then was gone. Ruth pressed her palms flat on the railing and looked down at them, and she said, He has a way of making a person feel like they are always a little wrong, like they are always a little behind, like they have made a mistake they cannot quite name. It is very quiet the way he does it. That is what makes it hard. It does not come all at once. It comes in small pieces. A look, a silence, a word said in a certain way. And after enough years, the pieces have added up, and you cannot find the shape of yourself anymore because the shape has changed so slowly you did not notice it going. I did not know the word for what she was describing then. I know it now. But that morning, in my pinned dress, with my hair half braided, and the guests arriving, and my father's face so full of satisfaction at the match he had arranged, I did not know what to do with what she had given me. I said, "Ruth, he has been nothing but kind to me." And she nodded slowly and said, "Yes, he will be, for a while." Then my mother's voice came from inside calling my name, the way it did when she needed me back in the world of tasks and duties and things that had to be done. Ruth touched my hand once, very lightly, the way you touch something you are not sure you will touch again. She said, "I am not telling you to run. I am telling you to watch and to remember wherever you are a year from now, 2 years, 5 years, that someone told you the truth this morning before any of it started." And then she went inside, and I stood on that porch for another minute, and I chose to fold what she had said into a small shape and place it somewhere at the back of my mind, where difficult things go when there is no space to hold them. I chose to believe that Ruth had been colored by her own marriage, by Aaron and his rooms of quiet. I chose to believe that what she was describing was her story and not mine. I chose to believe, because I needed to, that Daniel was different with me, that I was different, that love, even the arranged and agreed upon kind, changes the shape of a person. The ceremony was long. The sun was warm through the barn windows. My father's face was proud. Daniel stood beside me in his black coat with his hands at his sides, and he looked at me when I said my vows with an expression I mistook for tenderness. It was not tenderness. I know that now. It was something else, something more like ownership with a soft face on it. But I was 22, and I did not know the difference yet between a man who loves you and a man who is glad to have you. The first year was good in the way that first years can be when you are determined to make them good. Daniel was attentive. Daniel was present. Daniel helped carry water when the pipes froze and mended the fence when the cattle pushed through, and was kind to my mother when she visited. There were moments of real warmth, and I held on to them the way you hold on to the last good weather before winter comes. I thought of Ruth's words sometimes in the night, and I pressed them flat and said to myself, she was wrong. She did not know us. She did not know what we had. The second year was when I began to notice. It was small at first. A comment at dinner about the bread being too dense, said gently, said almost kindly, but said in front of his mother, who was visiting. Said in a way that made me feel, for the rest of that evening, that I was holding something slightly broken in my hands and not sure how I had broken it. Then a comment about the way I had answered his cousin at market. "You were a little sharp," he said, driving home, not looking at me. People notice that. I turned the comment over in my mind for 3 days. I was not sharp. I had been direct. But by the end of those 3 days, I had begun to wonder if perhaps I had been sharp and not known it. This is how it works. I did not understand this when it was happening to me. The not knowing is part of it. The wondering if you are wrong is part of it. Because if you always wonder if you are wrong, then you never quite trust your own eyes. And if you never trust your own eyes, then the only pair of eyes you are left with are his. This is what Ruth had meant when she said the shape of you changes so slowly you do not notice it going. She had been inside it herself with Aaron, and she had watched it happen to her the way you watch water wear stone, not in a single moment, but over years of small erosions. By the 3rd year, I had stopped arguing, not because I agreed, but because arguing made things worse in a way I could never quite explain to anyone from the outside. It was not that he shouted. He never shouted. It was that a disagreement became a thing that lived in the house for days, a heaviness in the air, a careful distance in the way he moved around me, until I could not remember what it had felt like before the disagreement, and the only way through was to let it go. So I let things go. I let so many things go that eventually I was not sure what was left of the things I had carried into the marriage at the start. I thought of Ruth more often now. I thought of her dark, slow-moving eyes. I thought of her hands pressed flat on the railing. I thought of her saying, "The shape of yourself." I thought of her saying, "I am telling you this now, because once the vow is made, there will be no one left to tell you." She had been right. There was no one. You do not go to your mother and say, "My husband makes me feel a little wrong all the time," without being able to name how he does it. You do not go to the bishop. You do not go to the other women, because they are carrying their own loads, and the loads are heavy enough already. You learn to smile at church. You learn to say fine when people ask. You learn to be grateful for the bread and the roof and the man who does not shout, who does not raise his hand, who is good in public. You learn to count your blessings until the blessings cover the other things. In the 4th year, I started going to the garden alone in the evenings, just to be somewhere that felt like mine. I planted things I did not need to plant. Extra rows of beans, more tomatoes than we could eat. I told myself it was practical. It was not practical. It was the only hour of the day when I was not adjusting myself to fit the shape of someone else's expectations. That garden was the truest thing I had. When I was in it, I could breathe all the way to the bottom of the breath. It was in that garden, one evening in the 5th year, that Ruth came to me again. She had walked over from her farm on a Tuesday when Daniel was at market. She found me on my knees in the dirt between the bean rows, and she knelt down beside me without saying anything and started pulling weeds. We worked beside each other for a while without speaking, the kind of silence that is full, not empty, the kind between people who understand each other past the need for constant words. Then she said, without looking up from the dirt, "You remember what I told you on your wedding morning?" I said yes. I said it the way you say yes to something you have been carrying for years without being able to put it down. She said, "I wanted to tell you that I know what it costs, the stain. I wanted to tell you that it is not weakness. And I wanted to tell you that it does not have to be forever. even when everything around you says it does. I looked at her. I looked at this woman who had stood on a porch on my wedding morning and offered me a truth I was not ready for, and had waited 5 years without saying, "I told you so," without needing me to come to her, without making it about herself. And something in me that had been held very tightly for a long time came loose. Not broken, just loose. The way a fist opens when the thing inside it has finally been passed to someone else. I cried in that garden the way I had not let myself cry in 5 years. Ruth put her arm around me, and she did not say anything, and she did not tell me what to do. She just held on while the sun went down behind the tree line, and the beans grew in their rows, and somewhere far off, a dog was barking at something it would never catch. I left the community at 27. The leaving is its own story, and the shunning is its own story, and the years after are their own long story that I have told in pieces in other videos. But there is a part I have not told yet, the part about what Ruth paid for what she gave me. When I left, Ruth was shunned alongside me, not formally, not by the bishop, but quietly, socially, in the way of doors that no longer open and tables you are no longer invited to. Because it came out, eventually, that she had said something to me on my wedding morning. Daniel did not say it loudly, but Daniel said it to enough people, carefully, gently, with his good in public face. He said his sister had always been difficult, had always made trouble where there was none. He said he had tried to be patient with her, and look what it had cost him. And the community, which loves a quiet story more than a true one, believed him, because he was good in public, and she had always been a little too direct, and that kind of woman, people always find a way to explain her. Ruth lost things because she told me the truth. She lost them slowly, the same way she had lost herself inside her marriage, in small pieces that added up. And she never once said to me, "Look what I gave up for you." She never once held it over me. The last time I saw her, she was standing in her kitchen making bread, the kind of bread that is better than anyone else's, and she was humming something low, and I did not know the song. And she looked at me from across the kitchen, and she smiled the way she had always smiled, easily, without loudness. And she said, "I would do it again. That morning on the porch, I would say it all again." I did not know then that it would be the last time I saw her. The shunning that followed my leaving was more complete than I had imagined, and the doors that closed fully. I have written letters Ruth has never answered, and I do not know if the letters reached her or were taken before they did. I think about her most on mornings when the light comes through the window at a particular angle and the air smells like something baking. I think about her hands on the porch railing. I think about her kneeling in the dirt between my bean rows. I think about the truth she carried to me before it was wanted and held it quietly until I was ready. I carry it still. The truth she handed me before the vow ever was. Before you go, I want to say something from the heart. I know there are millions of videos you could have spent this time with, and I know that some of you came here because something in the title pulled at you in a way you could not quite name. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you of someone who told you a truth you weren't ready for, or someone you are still waiting to reach, Please subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. It is completely free, and it is the only way the next story finds you when it is time. And before you leave, I want to know one thing. Was there ever a person in your life who warned you about something before it happened? Tell me in the comments. I will read every single one.